everyone, Niklsun here, and welcome to a special edition of Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get into today's hot topic. Only moments after I'd finished recording today's episode, the biggest news of the day dropped. And it looks as though, while still not confirmed by Marvel, it looks like we have our writer and director for the upcoming Spider-Man. Now, early reports had suggested certain people like Matthew Vaughn, or there was another name that was rumored that people were really interested in directing the new Spider-Man movie. And there was always one person that they were leaving out, and it was somebody who was currently attached to a Spider-Man film. Now, Drew Goddard, he was the original showrunner for Daredevil. He had actually gotten to the point where he had written the first several episodes. And then I guess it was just his work on the Sinister Six, which he was also working on with Sony. They had decided to, instead of pushing that film back, they were actually going to be pushing it up. They gave it a release date of, I believe it was November of 2016. So they said, listen, like, we got to get rolling on this. So he could not split his responsibilities between both Daredevil and Sinister Six. So he dropped out of Daredevil and decided to go for that. We all know after the effects of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, they decided to push the Sinister Six film back a little bit and just see what kind of process or story they could come up with. Well, I guess they really did like what Drew Goddard gave them, because not only is he just a fantastic storyteller. I mean, when you look at what he did, especially with Cabin in the Woods, I mean, that movie is just such an ode to fandom. I mean, he literally was a fanboy who got the chance to make a film. Like, that is that version of an incarnate right there. So him getting the ability to come in and direct and also write the new Spider-Man film under the tutelage of Kevin Feige and all the guys at Marvel, this is really great news. Now, with this report that came out of Latino Review, there are some other aspects that are really intriguing. First off, there's no word on the casting yet, even though there has been that rumor going around about Dylan O'Brien actually getting the role. I don't know or think that that is true, but who knows? It could actually come out later on tonight, or it could come out tomorrow, that Dylan O'Brien has been cast as Spider-Man. Although there's been reports suggesting that, you know, he's already got his own franchise, so he's not likely to be considered for that role. He's also a little bit older than they're looking for. They are going to be looking for a high school set Peter Parker. Well, actually, that's another thing. Nowhere in this report did it state Peter Parker. All it stated was Spider-Man or Spidey. So we don't even know if it's going to be Peter Parker, although I think that's the logical way to go. Have Peter Parker and Spider-Man be established in this new franchise without doing an origin, because they confirmed we're not getting an origin story, at least through this report. This is not from Marvel, but they have confirmed we're not getting an origin story, which means it's going to most likely have to be Peter Parker. You can't bring in Miles Morales to a Spider-Man film without at least explaining how he became Spider-Man, because he did not become Spider-Man the same way that Peter Parker did. So you need to include a sort of origin story for Miles Morales in most likely the first or I would actually like it to be at least the second film in this franchise if they're going that route. But you don't even make it an origin story. You just pepper him in throughout the film and are laying the foundation for the character. That way you get away from the origin story tropes and are still able to fulfill and bring in a new character. I think there are ways that they could do it, but they need to start with Peter Parker. That's most likely who we're getting. But another thing is, it's rumored to be called the Spectacular Spider-Man. And they're looking to launch a new trilogy that is being seen as releasing in consecutive summers. So that to me states, and they didn't really clarify on that, but that to me states 2017 we'll get the Spectacular Spider-Man. 2018 we'll get the Spectacular Spider-Man 2, and in 2019 we will get the Spectacular Spider-Man 3. Now, the film is also, these are like the major plot points of the film here. If that's to be believed from Latino Review, it looks as though the film is going to deal heavily with Spider-Man fighting or in conflict with Iron Man. Now, I don't know how that's going to play about. Maybe they're both very egotistical and they're both vying for the public's love. and, you know, Iron Man is coming in and kind of showboating to Spider-Man that, listen, I've been around the block. I've been their favorite for X amount of years. Spider-Man is very new in this world. While still not dealing with an origin story, he's probably been there for about 6 months to a year. And he's now saying, listen, the people love me. You can hear them chanting my name. And, you know, Tony Stark could do something along the lines of, well, I have, you know, my own tower, you know, and they could have a back and forth like that. And that could be the conflict that causes them to fight. But another major aspect of the film is supposedly going to deal with Spider-Man auditioning to be a part of the Avengers, which to me, that sounds really cool. That's pulled right from the comics. So that to me is really cool. That's a great way to try to introduce Spider-Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because then it gets everybody to acknowledge that he exists almost right off the bat. And not just acknowledge it, but just be aware that he exists. So then you could pepper him in wherever you needed to. You know, you could put a little tiny tidbit of something in a Doctor Strange movie. You know, not saying that Spider-Man has to be there, but you could just put that little nugget in there. You know, let's say at one point in the film he has to visit New York and you see Spider-Man swinging in the background. You know, or there's lots of possibilities. But for him trying to pass an audition to go into the Avengers, to me, is really cool. The other aspect of the film supposedly is going to be about the origin of sorts of the Sinister Six and that team coming together. And then with the potential of spinning that off into its own film later on if it does end up to be successful. So there's a couple of different ways that they could approach this film. I personally do like the fact of them, if they're going to do both the Sinister Six and the Spider-Man fighting Iron Man and trying to join the Avengers, that to me is a lot to deal with, because there's a lot that you would need to establish in those sections. You would have to put a little bit more time into the Sinister Six, because that's 6 independent villains that you would need to not only introduce, but you need to explain why they're trying to come together. So there's a lot happening right there that, to me, he's going to need to really work on that. And I have a lot of faith in Drew Goddard, so I do believe that it is in the right hands. But this is where, to me, it gets complicated. If my assumption on what they stated is correct, which is consecutive summers, meaning 2017, 2018, 2019, that then means we're getting Spider-Man, or Spectacular Spider-Man, in July of 2017. We're then most likely going to have an appearance of Spider-Man in Avengers Infinity War Part 1 in May of 2018. That then means most likely we're going to get a Spectacular Spider-Man 2 in July of 2018 or sometime in the summer. And then we're going to have Infinity War Part 2 in May of 2019, which means if there is indeed going to be a cliffhanger of sorts and Spider-Man is involved in that cliffhanger, well, how are they going to have Spectacular Spider-Man 2? Because it is set, the movie will be released in between the installments of the Avengers. So that to me is a little bit of an issue. The way that I can see them working out, and again, this is all based on the speculation that Spider-Man is going to be in Infinity War. I mean, I think we can throw as much as we want at the wall and say that yes, he's going to be in it, but how much he's going to be in it is still up for debate. Whether or not he's a crucial character, whether or not he's in both installments is also another point of contention. But if he is, let's just for argument's sake say that he is in both Infinity War Part 1 and 2, and if they are going to be releasing a Spectacular Spider-Man film every year, the only way that I can see them doing it is have the first one come out on its original release date, or if you can, release it earlier, just only by a few months. And then you could do something along the lines of Spectacular Spider-Man 2 opens up in April. You know, it takes that first weekend in April, just like how Captain America did last year, how Fast and Furious 7 is doing it this year. So there is that possibility. That then has them open the second installment before Infinity War Part 1. Then you could release Spectacular Spider-Man 3 in July of 2019. So you have a little bit more than a year gap between Part 2 and Part 3. But in between there, you get Infinity War Part 1 and 2, concluding that storyline, and then allowing Spider-Man, the Spectacular Spider-Man trilogy, to conclude itself in 2019 after the events of Infinity War Part 2. That you then don't have to worry about any cliffhangers or any continuity errors or having to explain why a character is here and there. Why is Spider-Man not helping the Avengers if clearly they're in dire straits and we need to see him help them, but he's off going and doing his own adventure. Now, that being said, that is tying in with the comics. They used to do that on the last page or so. And in other news, there's this person is saving this kitten out of a tree and all this kind of stuff. They used to do that. So there are definite possibilities and different ways that they could go about this. The fact that Drew Goddard is writing and directing this gives me a lot of hope. The fact that also in the report, they basically said that under no ifs, ands, or buts, Avi Arad and Matt Tolmach are both far removed from this movie. Those were the producers on The Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2. So, well, Avi Arad has been connected to Spider-Man since Sony's had it, but still, there's a lot of possibilities with this. I still don't really know who I'd want to see Spider-Man as. I do know that I want a Peter Parker right now, because that to me is the only way that you could properly introduce the character of Miles Morales, who I really do want to see on the screen. But the only way to do that without falling into the trope of an origin story again would be to introduce him into an already established Spider-Man film, which means you already have to have Peter Parker at least in one full feature. So there's a lot of ways that they could go about this, but to me, I have a feeling that they're going to really work around it, and with Drew Goddard at the helm, I don't think we really have a problem to deal with at all. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, if you think that this is actually the right way that they're going, if you think Goddard is the right director or writer for this film, and if not, who would you like to see take the helm of this? So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and if we do get more information about this, I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click that subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And you can also give us a like on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Movie News with Niklsun. If you guys ever have a topic or a question you'd like to have talked about on the show, you can go ahead and email us at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com, or you can put a comment in the comment section, and on every Friday episode, we'll try to get to as many answers as we can. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.